there, good evening. Welcome to the Library of Mythical Ireland. You caught me sucking a sweet. Hope I don't need that. I hope the voice doesn't go hoarse. Hope everybody's keeping well. And happy All Hallows Day. And I hope you enjoyed your Halloween. Tom King, I heard you were out trick-or-treating on the highways and byways of Meath last night, scaring everybody. I'm only joking. And I hope you all had a great Halloween. And of course, if you celebrate Samhain, my own preference is to celebrate that on what I call maybe the official astronomical date, which is on the 7th of November this year. So hold your horses on Samhain, and definitely don't wish somebody a happy Samhain. No, sorry. We are streaming tonight simultaneously on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page and on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel. We're not able to stream direct to the Mythical Ireland community on Facebook. If somebody would share the stream from the Mythical Ireland page to the Mythical Ireland community, I'd be much obliged. Don't forget, if you're watching, say hello in the comments and we'll say hello back to you and give you a nice welcome. The clocks in Ireland went back an hour on Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Consequences of which it is suddenly darker a lot earlier in the evenings. Winter has arrived. Lovely, beautiful, crisp evening in the Boyne Valley. Stars are out, shining in their plenitude. Jupiter and Saturn in the south. I had the pleasure, if you didn't see the pictures, go over to the Facebook pages. I had the pleasure of meeting my good friend Matthew Kelly, who I haven't seen in 2 years. And he was doing some projection mapping onto the stone of the seven suns. Really fabulous stuff. Anyway, a very good evening to Guido Bruce, who's the first in the house tonight. Guido is one of the Tua, the growing number of Tua, by the way, that I have met in real life. Here in Drogheda, Guido, it's good to see you. Paul Alburl says, it's beautiful on the Gulf Coast in Alabama. I hope it is, Paul. Sending you good wishes from Ireland on All Hallows Day. Hope you're enjoying yourself. John Main is in Belmullet in County Mayo, land of the yew tree. Looking forward to a lovely evening with the Tua. It's always a lovely evening when you're along, John. And a pleasure to have you in the library. Daisy Peters is in the house, all the way from Rio de Janeiro. Daisy, it's always a pleasure. I hope you are keeping well this afternoon and that life in Brazil is treating you well. Joe Butler's in Colorado. Hope everyone is well. For Tua in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope your Bealtaine is beautiful. I do apologize for the fact that you have had to change your time of viewing in the States and in Canada because I believe that your clocks change next week, is it? So until then, you're only, say, if you're in New York, you're only 4 hours behind where you'd normally be 5 hours. So apologies for that. That's just the clock change thing. European Union has voted to get rid of that. I think that's starting next year. We won't be changing the clocks. Mandy McCurl is in the house from the Isle of Mull. Hope you're all keeping safe and well. So far, so good, Mandy. Always a pleasure to see you. Sláinte. Merritt Brown Schmidt says, good evening. Hello there, Merritt, Sláinte, and welcome along. Dirk Hook is in the house. Dirk, I hate to put you on the spot. You're hardly the same man who's a licensed radio amateur that I met yesterday at Tara. If that's the case, that is very interesting because it seems we have shared interests. But very good evening and welcome to the live stream. Barb Jordan is in the house. Says, hi, everyone. Hello, Barb. Barb. Sure, look, I keep saying it. Barb was there on the very first day of Live Irish Myths. And here she is, episode 157. Stephen O'Hara. Good evening from Kilkenny. I had the great pleasure of Stephen's company on the mythological and folklore walk and talk along the Boyne in Drogheda on Saturday. Great pleasure to meet Stephen face to face for the first time. Such a wonderful pleasure for me to be meeting so many people now in the past few weeks who I've only ever met virtually before. Sue Prenter is in the house, just joined. Did I mix up the hour? No, Sue, it's simply because the clocks have changed in Ireland. And so the clocks went back an hour at the weekend. What it means is, if I'm not sure where you are, actually. You're up north, are you? Yeah, but I was just explaining for the viewers in the States and the Canada, they have to change the hour that they watch until they change their clocks. Brendan Byrne is in the house from Wicklow. Cannot believe you were in Roundwood and I didn't know. Oh, sorry. I did announce beforehand that I was going, excuse me, pardon me, to the Astronomy Ireland Starbq, Brendan. And yeah, that might have been an opportunity for us to meet up because you're only down the road. You're in Glendalough. Yeah, but sure, look, there'll be another opportunity, I'm sure. But welcome along anyway. Janet Moran is in Boston. Just putting hand sanitizer on. Janet Moran is in Boston, where it's a beautiful, sunny, crisp afternoon. Very welcome along to Live Irish Myths, episode number 157. Can you believe it? Robin Rickman says, good evening all. Fáilte, Robin, you're very long. I think you're in Pennsylvania. And Scott Doherty is in the house. Hopefully next week I'll be logging in from County Clare. Brilliant. Up the banner. Super stuff. I should mention, if in case you didn't see it, yesterday on Halloween, there was a special 1.5 hour episode of Candlelit Tales. If you're not following them, go over and follow them. Sorka and Aaron. We had a very pleasurable conversation recorded a couple of weeks ago involving topics that you might say are associated with Halloween. And it was premiered yesterday on their YouTube channel, and I don't know where else they podcast. I follow them on YouTube. So get over there when you're done here. If you haven't had enough, there's lots more there. Candlelit Tales. Look them up. Steve Martinson is in the house. Fáilte, Steve. Cut us a thought too. Julianne Osborne is in the house. Hello to all the Tua, and a special hello to you, Julianne. Another of the Tua who I have met long before I started doing Live Irish Myths, I might add. Anne McCallum is in the house. Hello, Anton and the mighty Tua. Hello, I hope everyone's doing well. What an amazingly busy October you've had, Anthony. Yes, I should mention that patrons got their October video update yesterday, which is why Anne's mentioning it. And what an exciting evolutionary vision you have for the future. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, Anne. I hope I can make it happen now. A really, really special vision in mind for that. I have an appropriately chosen beverage to acknowledge your continuing success and well-deserved recognition. Sláinte. Well, mine is a glass of boiling water, but Sláinte, Anne. And sure, look, I might take out the crater later on and pour myself a dram, and we can clink glasses virtually. Oh, it's Mandy's birthday. Is that Mandy McCurl? Happy birthday, Mandy. I hope you are having a great day. Didn't realize, of course, you wouldn't announce it yourself, you being the modest person that you are. Everybody, after 3, happy 2, 3, 1, 2. It's after 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, actually. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mandy. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! For she's a jolly good fellow. For she's a jolly good fellow. And all the rest. Happy birthday. I hope I have suitably embarrassed you. At the very least, I know I've damn well embarrassed myself. Tyrell, hello, Ty. Good evening to you. Back home now. It was so great to be in Ireland. It was lovely to meet you in Ireland and to also get an opportunity to hear some of the detail of the work that you're doing and the plans that you have. And I wish you all the very best with it. And if I can help you, I will help you. Certainly will help you to try and get some volunteers for your wonderful project. Lovely day at Douth that day. And lovely to meet your wife and kids and your family. Fantastic stuff. Glad to hear you got home safely, by the way. Roberto is in the house. Now, I'm not sure I can pronounce that. Feliz Samhain desde Galicia. Happy Samhain to everyone. Thank you, Roberto. And blessings of Samhain right back at you. And the Halloween, All Hallows Day and the Halloween season. Now, who did I miss? Dorothy Best is in New Mexico. Live, finally. Brilliant, Dorothy. Thank you for joining us. And you're very welcome. Hope you enjoy yourself. Federica Guy, yet another of the two who I met in person recently. And Federica is back in Torino. Well, glad you got home safely, Federica. Really nice to meet you. Hope you enjoyed your whirlwind tour of Drogheda and Douth and Newgrange. It was certainly a great pleasure to see you. I'm glad that we're able to do this traveling stuff again that we didn't think we'd be doing for several years. Jules Cousins is in the house and says hello. Fáilte, Jules, you're very welcome along. Pat Noon says hi from Fairyfield. Hello, Pat. You're very welcome to the live stream. I wonder, was there heightened activity in the field last night? Brilliant stuff. Joe Butler has shared the stream to the community page. That's very good of you, Joe. Thank you for that. Always very helpful. Barbara Barney is in the house. Hello, Barbara. Sláinte. Janet Moran. It's rumoured that the US will stop messing with the time twice a year. Fingers crossed it happens soon. I don't know. I actually think that if we stay with winter time, if we don't go to summertime, the sun will rise at midsummer at 4 a.m. and we'll miss an hour of extended sunlight in the evening, you know. I don't know. I still think that it's worth the while changing. But anyway, everybody's got their own opinions, I suppose. Samantha Healy's in the house. It's a chilly night. Yes, indeed it is. I have the heating on here, and I'm wearing the old Ganzi. I'm wearing the jumper to keep warm. Alan Curran is watching all the way from Drogheda. I know where that is. Alan, the most local viewer of the evening so far. I could nearly hang out the window and shout, and you'd hear me down the road. You're very welcome to the live stream. Catherine Woodruff, taking a break from practice, have a chance to go to a mini session on the weekend. It's been ages. Brilliant stuff, Catherine. Hope you enjoy that. The Full Irish, that's Gary, is in the house from Tala. Another fine-ish day on the sun. Yes, a little bit cool, but it's lovely to see a bright day when the sun goes down. Dirk, I do not mind at all. I was delighted to see the book going to a happy home. So I need to tell you, folks, that I met Dirk in the old bookshop on the Hill of Tara yesterday, immediately after the celebrations that we had for the life of the late John Gilmartin, who is very well known here in Ireland to many people who would be interested in ancient sites and folklore and mythology. Sean sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago at the age of 75, and we had a celebration on the hill. There were readings and tributes, there was poetry, there was music, there was singing. It was such a wonderful celebration of Sean's life. Last time I met Sean was on the Hill of Tara before the pandemic, and a lovely man. So I met Dirk, and I picked up the original hardback version of the book that we're reading on the streams, Irish Fairy Tales by James Stephens. And Dirk bought it and brought it home. And I said to him, you got yourself a really, really lovely one there. And afterwards, when you had left, I got Michael, the owner of the shop, and Michael said, that's a very rare one. And you really did get yourself a lovely treat. So I wish you the very best with it. It's a real treasure, and I hope you get many hours. It's a great, as you know, the reading of it has been very pleasurable. Michael Slavin was also telling me that Stephens, although he emigrated, I think he went to the States, he said that he was sort of in with the Celtic revival scene here, that he was known to the likes of A.E. George William Russell, and he was known to the likes of W.B. Yeats. And of course, he was a very good writer. And Michael was also saying his sources are very good. Like, he is a bit sort of lyrical and perhaps takes a tiny bit of license. But the stories are still sort of rendered fairly faithfully. Tom Lawler is in the house from Tipperary, L&L. I presume that's Love and Light, Tom. I hope that you've had a good day and that you're nice and relaxed for the story. Samantha Healy is in from the chilly Mourns. I take it that's somewhere like Kilkeel or Downpatrick or somewhere like that, rather than you're not actually up on the mountains, I hope. I'd say it's fairly chilly up there. Beautiful part of the world. Valerie Gallagher is in the house from Rhode Island. Hello, Valerie, the smallest of the states. And we're live streaming from the smallest of the counties in Ireland. Beth Kelly is in Oklahoma. Good evening, good afternoon, Beth. Welcome to the live stream. Jason says, it's another beautiful day on Dale Hollow Lake. I was here an hour ago. Brilliant stuff, Jason. Sorry about the confusion with the times, but that'll sort itself out after a couple of weeks. Michelle Terrell is in snowy Colorado. So happy to be back to catching live. Blessed Samhain to the Tua. Same to yourself, Michelle. Happy Halloween and Samhain season to you. Mariana Dunn is in Virginia. Hello, Mariana. Always a pleasure to see you in the library. Neil Bentley is in Lancashire. Hello, Neil. Very nice of you to join us Hope you're sitting comfortably and that you have yourself a brew or a dram or something nice, and that you're in good form. I keep seeing sort of the same messages being repeated. It's a bit annoying. It goes back to the top. Helena Breen is in the house. Hello, Helena. Fáilte G on Lowerland Show. Karam Gogus is in the house. Hello, Karam. Karam, who faithfully rendered Dronehenge in 3D, gets a mention. Wait till you hear. If you hadn't seen the post earlier, not to be boasting or anything, but I had a very broad smile on my face when I read the review, a full page book review of my Dronehenge book, which is in the current issue of the Journal of Irish Archaeology. And the review was written by Chris Reid of the Institute of Technology, Sligo. But anyway, it meets to all of the things that he says, and it's a very positive review, and I'm really chuffed with it. He says the following: in addition to several stunning photos of Dronehenge and the wider landscape, the book includes a proposed high-quality 3D model of Dronehenge based on its footprint. And of course, that is the work of our dear friend Kerem, who is a regular viewer on the live streams. And Kerem's model actually features on the cover of the Dronehenge book. That's part of it there. But I will show you, and just to promote the man's fabulous work, this is how he brilliantly brought Dronehenge back to life with his 3D modelling. Fantastic stuff. Brilliant work, Kerem. Always a joy. Always a great pleasure to work with you, really and truly. Who else? Nora Gaffney O'Connor's in the house. Were you swimming today, Nora? What's the water like? It's probably warmer in the water than it is in the air because it's cold at the moment. I can't see you now. I saw your comment a second ago. Now it's gone. Did we suitably embarrass Mandy with the singing? Just for the late arrivers, Mandy's birthday is today, and we sang happy birthday. Susan Scott is in Connecticut. Hello, Susan. Good afternoon to you. Welcome along. Mojo79 is in Gloucestershire in England. A great pleasure to welcome you to the live stream. Hope you are safe and well. Smart 2020 says, regards from Germany. What is, I know, is it Guten Abend? Is it? Guten Abend. Good evening to you and welcome. Beth Kelly, thank you. That's about the only compliment I will ever get for my singing voice. So thank you. And I'll pay you later. I'm totally missing now. I definitely did see Nora Gaffney O'Connor. And now the comment has disappeared. I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So Nora, oh, there you are. There you go. Giaguch. Hope everyone's well. Still swimming. There you go. Cold, I'm sure. Anyway, I think we'll get, what time are we on? Oh my God, 18 minutes. Still get complaints, believe it or not. I'm still getting, every week, somebody writes a comment, a smart comment on one of the live streams and says, oh, I had to sit for the first 20 minutes listening to him saying hello to everybody. Will you just get on with the story? It's like, look, if you're not here live and you're not here getting your name called out, then you're missing all the action. And that's half of what it was about, isn't it? The whole reason, you know, that the raison d'etre for Live Irish Myths was a way of dealing with the pandemic and dealing with the stress of it and the anxiety of it and the insecurity of it and the mystery of it and, you know, the loneliness of it, because some people are on their own and they appreciated that. So I kept that up and I will keep it up. As long as I'm doing these live streams, I will say hello to people and give them a friendly Irish welcome. And if you don't like that, well, you don't have to hang around. So we are concluding the story, and I'm loving Stephen so much that I kind of have the feeling that it's out of copyright. So I kind of have the feeling we might just read the rest of the book over the course of several more episodes. We've been enjoying it so far. Anyway, just to catch up on where we were last week. Where are we? We're 19, let's call it 19 and a half minutes. Last week, we had just had the Salmon of Knowledge episode in which Finnegas was waiting for the Salmon of Knowledge at the Boyne, and the boy Jevna came along, and Finnegas asked him to help cook the fish, and then Jevna burnt his thumb and got all the knowledge of the salmon of knowledge. And from then on, he became Finn. We'll read, just to recap, I'll read the last half page of that so that we can overlap, and then we'll start the next chapter. If everybody's sitting comfortably. Dorothy, the best. Anything to George. Can you kick a ball? Yes, but you know that's the sentiment. Exactly. Yes. Amber Cara, exactly. A friendly, that's what it's about. It's a friendly space, a welcoming place. And it's just part of what we do. And you know, the thing is, there's this fast forward feature on YouTube. You can fast forward, you can click the timeline. And if I'm still saying hello to people, you can click again and find the part where the story. And you'd be quicker doing that than typing a negative comment. That's the stupid thing. Anyway, let's not dwell on the negative Nellies. Happy birthday to Mandy. There's Alex Casterton. Yes, indeed. And so good to see you, Alex. Hope you're keeping well. They're lovely and got us through the lockdown. It's still great now. If you don't like the hellos, then watch back and skip through them. Simple. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. It's so easy, isn't it? You know? And otherwise, you know, if you're not paying for the privilege, then you can't afford to be complaining, you know? It was given to you, Finnegas answered. It was given to Fionn, the son of Uil, the son of Bashkne, and it will be given to him. You shall have half the fish, cried Fionn. I will not eat a piece of its skin that is as small as the point of its smallest bone, said the resolute and trembling bard. Let you now eat up the fish, and I shall watch you and give praise to the gods of the underworld and of the elements. Fionn then ate the salmon of knowledge, and when it had disappeared, a great jollity and tranquillity and exuberance returned to the poet. Ah, said he, I had a great combat with that fish. Did it fight for its life? Fionn inquired. It did, but that was not the fight I meant. You shall eat a salmon of knowledge too, Fionn assured him. You have eaten one, cried the blithe poet, and if you make such a promise, it will be because you know. I promise it and know it, said Fionn. You shall eat a salmon of knowledge yet. Brilliant. Mavanwe Millward thinks that she can sneak around the back without being mentioned. Hello there, Mavanwe, and you're very welcome to the live stream. We are just literally starting. I mean, I've just read the last half page of last week's, just to overlap. So this is chapter 11. He had received all that he could get from Finnegas. His education was finished, and the time had come to test it, and to try all else that he had of mind and body. He bade farewell to the gentle poet, and set out for Tara of the Kings, Chowarnaree. It was Samhain tide. Well, would you look at that? What a coincidence. And the feast of Tara was being held, at which all that was wise or skilful or well born in Ireland were gathered together. Deborah Gilbert is saying hello from Connecticut. Loved seeing you on Candlelit. The great stories from all of you. Yeah, I really enjoyed myself. That was a wonderful conversation. Could have gone on for hours, of course, but you're very welcome to the live stream, Deborah. Yes, Brendan. Yes, indeed. So if anybody's watching this back on YouTube, now you'll be put in your place. Don't you dare write a negative comment about the hellos. That's a big part of it. And Michelle Terrell is saying hello and a happy birthday to Mandy. There you go, Mandy. I hope you have something suitable to celebrate. This is how Tara was when Tara was. There was the High King's Palace with its fortification. Without it was another fortification enclosing the 4 minor palaces, each of which was maintained by one of the 4 provincial kings. Without that, again, was the great banqueting hall, and around it, and enclosing all of the sacred hill, in its gigantic bound, ran the main ramparts of Tara. From it, the centre of Ireland, well, it's not quite, Ishnok, I think, takes that title. 4 great roads went, north, south, east, and west. And along these roads, from the top and the bottom and the two sides of Ireland, there moved for weeks before Samhain an endless stream of passengers. Isn't that fantastic? You know that the uh, Fesh Chowru, Ch- Fesh Chowra, Chowra, Chowrach, Chowrach, Fesh Chowrach. I'm trying to get my pronunciations right here. Um, you know, was I think it was once every 3 years, but it was very, very major, like an Enoch, an assembly. Tom King is slipping in late. I was just saying at the start, Tom, I heard that you were scaring the bejeepers out of people up and down the high lanes and byways of Meath last night with your costume. I'm only joking, but I hope you had a good Halloween, and greetings of the season to you. Sandra Boothroyd says, nearly missed you. Well, it's just because of the time the clock changes, but that'll all right itself again in a couple of weeks. We'll be back to the normal. I'm 8 p.m. here, but of course, our clocks went back at the weekend. So it'll be an hour later for you, isn't that right? If you're watching from the States or anywhere like that. Here, a gay band went marching. Sorry, I'll try again because that's not what it says. Here, a gay band went carrying rich treasure to decorate the pavilion of a monster lord. On another road, a vat of seasoned yew, monstrous as a house on wheels, and drawn by 100 laborious oxen, came bumping and joggling the ale that thirsty Connacht princes would drink. This is fabulous, isn't it? It's so evocative, so full of imagination. On a road again, the learned men of Leinster, each with an idea in his head that would discomfit a northern olive and make a southern one gape and fidget, would be marching solemnly, each by a horse that was piled high on the back and widely at the sides with clean peeled willow or oaken wands that were carved from the top to the bottom with Ogham signs. The first lines of poems, for it was an offence against wisdom to commit more than initial lines to writing. The names and dates of kings, the procession of laws of Tara and of the sub kingdoms, the names of places and their meanings. So always the Shanachas or the Din Shanachas was very important for the wise, the learned ones to know, you know. Tom King says, that wasn't me, it was Michael Myers. Yeah, there was a dead giveaway. He had some sort of a spiral pendant around his neck. There you go. Sheila Gunn says, next weekend our clocks go back. Well, that's handy because that will mean things will sort of resynchronize, as it were. Hazelnut booze. Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I had a bottle of hazelnut liqueur. One of the two sent me that. That wasn't you, was it? That was one of the most gorgeous things I've ever tasted. And I'm so jealous right now because I would love to have a hazelnut liqueur right now. Furry Mittens is in the house. Hope you all had a spooky Halloween. Yes, indeed. Neil Hughes is in the house as well. And Mary. A little bit late. That's okay. Not at my music group tonight. I have a painful bout of sciatica. Ouch. Sorry to hear that, Neil. Hope you get well soon. So very pleased to join the tour tonight. We're always delighted to have you in the house. Just realised the clocks in the kitchen are still on old time, said Sue. That explains it. Yes. I had to change the clock in the car, which turned out to be really easy, not compared to the old cars. But some of the clocks on the walls, yes, indeed, are still displaying the old time. That's what happens, isn't it? Kathy May Deo says, I'm very late. Lunch hours changed 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So at least I'll get in on the end. Brilliant. Well, we're only just started, Kathy May. So don't worry. We haven't gone too far. Story. Mandy, yes, it was me, Sláinte. Well, you'll be pleased to know that not all at once now, but I imbibed every last drop that was in that bottle. It was sublime. As it happens, I love a liqueur. I'm very fond. No, I'm not going to say it because I know what'll happen. I know what'll happen if I say it. One will arrive at the door next week. No, I'm not saying it. But thank you for the lovely gift. It was gorgeous. It was fabulous. Yes, the names of places and their meanings. On the brown stallion ambling peacefully yonder, there might go the warring of the gods for 2 or 10,000 years. This mare with the dainty pace and the vicious eye might be sidling under a load of oaken odes in honour of his owner's family, with a few bundles of tales of wonder added in case they might be useful. And perhaps the restive piebald was backing the history of Ireland into a ditch. Oh, brilliant stuff. Elaine Dent, Lingenfelter is in the house. Hello there. Alan Hoskins has joined us. Hello, Alan. You're very welcome. Good evening to both of you. Yums, says Kathy May. Yes, indeed. Yes. I imagine what it must be like to taste hazelnut booze. Let's just put it this way: the food upon which the salmon of knowledge gained all its knowledge was the kno, the hazelnut. So I'm combining knowledge and alcohol. Basically, it's like one is cancelling the other out. I'm imbued with all this wonderful knowledge, and then if you drink enough, you just forget it all. Sorry. Anyway, I will continue. Sorry, I do apologize. Those of you who are here for the story and not here for the the waffle. On such a journey, all people spoke together, for all were friends, and no person had a weapon in another man's hand, other than as an implement to poke a reluctant cow with, or to pacify with loud wallops some hoof-proud colt. Into this teem and profusion of jolly humanity Fionn slipped, and if his mood had been as bellicose as a wounded boar, he would yet have found no man to quarrel with, and if his eye had been as sharp as a jealous husband's, he would have found no eye to meet it with calculation or menace or fear. For the peace of Ireland was in being, and for 6 weeks man was neighbour to man, and the nation was the guest of the High King. Fantastic stuff. Yes, indeed, Mandy. Virtual glass clink, indeed. Fionn went in with the notables. His arrival had been timed for the opening day and the great feast of welcome. He may have marvelled looking on the bright city with its pillars of gleaming bronze and the roofs that were painted in many colours, so that each house seemed to be covered by the spreading wings of some gigantic and gorgeous bird. Isn't it fabulous? I'm just going to turn off my heater. It's getting a bit warm now. Yes, indeed. Lovely and toasty in here now, I have to say. Lovely. Hope you're all suitably warm on this winter night. Of course, if I didn't see any of our Oceania friends from the antipodes, the antipodes, any of our Australian and New Zealand friends, because they'd argue the point that in fact we're in spring, mate. Which they'd be right to do. Desiree Riley's in the house. Hello there, Desiree. There's no such thing as sneaking in late to live Irish bits. You're very welcome. I hope you're keeping well. We're still using air conditioning, says Donna Jean Porter. You're just making everybody jealous. We're using the opposite of that. We're using hot air. Somebody might say, some of the people watching this might say, yeah, there's enough hot air on live Irish bits. God knows. Yes, have our heating on. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely to have a bit of heat, definitely. And the palaces themselves, mellow with red oak, polished within and without by the wear and the care of 1,000 years, and carved with the patient skill of unending generations of the most famous artists of the most artistic country of the Western world, he's not wrong there, would have given him much to marvel at also. It must have been like a city of dream, a city to catch the heart, when, coming over the great plain, Fionn saw Tara of the Kings held on its hill as in a hand to gather all the gold of the falling sun, and to restore a brightness as mellow and tender as that universal largesse. Wow. Fantastic stuff. John Goff Can't disagree with you. James Stephens is the most underrated genius of the Gaelic literary revival. Isn't he fabulous? Really fabulous stuff. In the great banqueting hall, everything was in order for the feast. The nobles of Ireland, with their winsome consorts, the learned and artistic professions represented by the pick of their time, were in place. The Ard Ri, Cun of the Hundred Battles, Cun Céad Cathach, had taken his place on the raised dais. How do you pronounce that word? Dais. It's like it's like a little platform upon which the throne or the upon which the supreme person sits, basically. Dais. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I've come across it before. Anyway, sure. Look, sure. All else fails, use the old Google. I can't hear that. That's because I have my sound muted. That's why, Anthony. You're not going to hear it.
Dais.
Dais. There you go. Dais.
Dais.
Dais. ArchDB says, yes, somebody needs to paint this scene. Absolutely. Wouldn't that be fabulous? I mean, it's so evocative. It's almost like a description of Rivendell from Lord of the Rings, isn't it? It's really fabulous. Yeah, Dais.
Dais.
Thank you. You're all right. Those of you who are suggesting how to pronounce it, there you go. Dais. On the raised dais which commanded the whole of that vast hall. At his right hand, his son Art, to be afterwards as famous as his famous father, that is Art Macon, another of the great famous kings of Tara, took his seat, and on his left, Dol Mór MacMorna, chief of the Fianna of Ireland, had the seat of honour. As the High King took his place, he could see every person who was noted in the land for any reason. Everyone who was present, for the fame of all men is sealed at Tara. And behind his chair a herald stood to tell anything the king might not know or had forgotten. Donna Furr is in the house. No such thing as sneaking in. Everybody say, "Boo, Donna, you're late." No, it's okay. It's perfectly all right. Just find a seat in the corner. Get yourself comfortable. A wee dram or a brew or something. No problem at all. Just don't make any noise. Don't clatter over the furniture or drop any books or smash any glasses or anything like that. Suitably embarrassed, But you're very welcome. You are really and truly very welcome. Conn gave the signal and his guests seated themselves. The time had come for the squires to take their stations behind their masters and mistresses. But for the moment, the great room was seated, and the doors were held to allow a moment of respect to pass before the servers and squires came in. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? The doors were held to allow a moment of respect to pass. Fantastic. Yeah. Looking over his guests, Conn observed that a young man was yet standing. There is a gentleman, he murmured. There is a gentleman, he murmured, for whom no seat has been found. We may be sure that the master of the banquet blushed at that. And, the king continued, I do not seem to know the young man. Nor did his herald, nor did the unfortunate master, nor did anybody. For the eyes of all were now turned where the kings went. Tarini Pendleton is in Laguna Beach in California. Hello, Tarini. Welcome along. Good afternoon. Excuse me. Susan Long is late. All of you who are late, there's quite a few who are late today. Can you please stay behind for detention and write out 100 lines? I must not be late for live Irish Myths. Thank you. I jest. You're very welcome. And thank you for announcing the fact that you're late so that we can embarrass you. Everyone, don't worry, it's great fun. Hope you're good. Hope you're all good. Irish Technical Thinker has arrived. Marcus, hello to you also. Why don't we just start from the top again? I jest. It's really lovely to see you all. Hope you all had a great Halloween. Give me the horn, said the gracious monarch. The horn of state was put to his hand. Young gentleman, he called to the stranger, I wish to drink to your health, welcome you to Tara. The young man came forward then, greater shouldered than any mighty man of that gathering, longer and cleaner limbed, with his fair curls dancing about his beardless face. The king put the great horn into his hand. "Tell me your name," he commanded gently. "I am Fionn, the son of Uil, the son of Bashkna," said the youth. And at that saying, a touch as of lightning went through the gathering, so that each person quivered, and the son of the great murdered captain looked by the king's shoulder into the twinkling eye of Gull. But no word was uttered, no movement made, except the movement and the utterance of the Ardree. "You are the son of our friend," said the great-hearted monarch. "You shall have the seat of a friend." He placed Fionn at the right hand of his own son Art. And thus concludes chapter 11. Fionn gets a welcome. It's a funny one. It has echoes, doesn't it, of Caught My Chura, where Lou Lunanshklek, as he is known in that particular episode, comes to Tara to the gate and is unknown to the gatekeeper and offers his services and is basically brought in to the feast as a stranger. Fantastic stuff. And is allowed to sits in place of the king, doesn't he, Nuadu? Yes, thank you for the reminder. The ghost stories I was planning to do next week, because next week is the 8th and is closest to Samhain, which is on the 7th. So some ghost stories next week. Don't let me forget that, by the way. Do keep reminding me. Tyler points out that commanded gently. Yes, yeah. It's like, attention. Sorry, yes, sir. Yeah. Joe O'Keefe is in the house. Hello, Joe. Well, I'm not going to embarrass any more latecomers. I'm just going to say hello. Joe, you're very welcome along. Beth Kelly says, "Is Samhain always on the 7th? No. But I always celebrate it on the midway point in days between autumn equinox and winter solstice, which regularly falls on the 7th, but not always." Thank you, Marcus, for the reminder. I hope I don't forget. Like, would be typical of me next Monday to be scrambling around for an idea for Live Irish Myths, not realizing that I promised to do the ghost stories. Chapter 12. It is to be known that on the night of the Feast of Samhain, the doors separating this world and the next world are opened, and the inhabitants of either can leave their respective spheres and appear in the world of the other beings. Now there was a grandson to the Dog Damor, the lord of the underworld, and he was named Eilen Macmina, out of She Finnachi, and this Eilen bore an implacable enmity to Tara and the Ardree. "That is my birthday, that's why I ask," says Beth. "Excellent, you're a Samhain baby. Well, happy birthday next week." So everybody, don't let me forget, because she may not announce it herself. On next week's live stream, we have to sing a one-day belated happy birthday to Beth, who is a Samhain baby. There you go. Fascinating stuff. John Horahan, glad you enjoyed the Candlelit Tales conversation. I had a great time with those two. Really loved it. I would talk to them for hours and hours and hours, and glad to hear that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Now there was a grandson of the Dog Damor. Yes. So Eilen Macmina, who had an implacable enmity to Tara and the Ardree. As well as being monarch of Ireland, her High King was chief of the people learned in magic. And it is possible that at some time Conn had adventured into Tirnanog, the land of the young, and had done some deed or misdeed in Eilen's lordship or in his family. It must have been an ill deed in truth, for it was in a very rage of revenge that Eilen came yearly at the permitted time to ravage Tara. 9 times he had come on this mission of revenge, but it is not to be supposed that he could actually destroy the holy city. The Ardree and magicians could prevent that. But just in case you don't know, Ardree is Irish for High King. So when you hear Ardree, that's referring to Conn, the High King. The Ardry and magicians could prevent that, but he could yet do a damage so considerable that it was worth Con's while to take extra precautions against him, including the precaution of chance. Excuse me. Glad you enjoyed it, Nora. And Royal Hill Tara Ranger, who I met at Tara yesterday in the flesh. There you go. Whose name is Paul. Another one of the two that has been met in person. Brilliant stuff. You're the first Irish person, to say my last name. It's refreshing. Wow. John Horan, very glad to have done that for you. Good stuff. Eileen has a lot in common with Grendel from Beowulf, it seems. Do you know what? I bought Beowulf recently. I haven't read it yet. It's a story I haven't read. I saw the movie, but I don't know what kind of likeness that bears to reality. But looking forward to that. Therefore, when the feast was over and the banquet had commenced, the 100 fighter, that is, Conn Ardry, stood from his throne and looked over his assembled people. The chain of silence was shaken by the attendant whose duty and honour was the silver chain, and at that delicate chime the hall went silent, and a general wonder ensued as to what matter the High King would submit to his people. Friends and heroes, said Conn, Eileen, the son of Mina, will come tonight from Slieve Fuad with occult, terrible fire against this city, against our city. Is there among you one who loves Tara and the king, and who will undertake our defence against that being? He spoke in silence, and when he had finished, he listened to the same silence. But it was now deep, ominous, agonized. Each man glanced uneasily on his neighbour, and then stared at his wine cup or fingers. The hearts of young men went hot for a gallant moment, and were chilled in the succeeding one. For they had all heard of Eileen out of Shefinachy in the north. The lesser gentlemen looked under their brows at the greater champions, and these peered furtively at the greatest of all. Art Og MacMorna of the hard strokes fell to biting his fingers. Conan the swearer and Gara MacMorna grumbled irritably to each other and at their neighbours. Even Cailche, the son of Ronan, looked down into his own lap, and Gulmore sipped at his wine without any twinkle in his eye. Yes, it seems that at this moment you're all suddenly seized with cowardice, it would appear. A horrid embarrassment came into the great hall, and as the High King stood in that palpitating silence, his noble face changed from kindly to grave, and from that to a terrible sternness. In another moment, to the undying shame of every person present, he would have been compelled to lift his own challenge and declare himself the champion of Tara for that night. But the shame that was on the faces of his people would remain in the heart of their king. Gull's merry mind would help him to forget, but even his heart would be wrung by a memory that he would not dare to face. It was at that terrible moment that Fionn stood up. What, said he, will be given to the man who undertakes this defence? All that can be rightly asked will be royally bestowed, was the king's answer. Who are the sureties? Said Fionn. The kings of Ireland and Redkith with his magicians. I will undertake the defence, said Fionn. And on that the kings and magicians bound themselves to the fulfilment of the bargain. Fionn marched from the banqueting hall, and as he went, all who were present of nobles and retainers and servants acclaimed him and wished him luck. But in their hearts, this is again like the Council of Elrond at Rivendell, where the youngest and the smallest, Frodo Baggins, agrees to carry the ring to Mordor. It's fascinating, isn't it? You can see, definitely, I know, nobody can tell me that Tolkien didn't sort of, didn't get major inspiration from Irish myths and landscape and monuments, etc. Fionn marched from the banqueting hall, and as he went, all who were present of nobles and retainers and servants acclaimed him and wished him luck. But in their hearts they were bidding him goodbye, for all were assured that the lad was marching to a death so inescapable that he might already be counted as a dead man. It pardon me, excuse me. It is likely that Fionn looked for help to the people of the Sidhe themselves, for through his mother he belonged to the tribes of Dana, although on the father's side his blood was well compounded with mortal clay. Isn't that a wonderful way of saying it? It may be, too, that he knew how events would turn, for he had eaten the salmon of knowledge. Yet it is not recorded that on this occasion he invoked any magical art as he did on the other adventures. Fionn's way of discovering whatever was happening and hidden was always the same and is many times referred to. A shallow, oblong dish of pure pale gold was brought to him. This dish was filled with clear water. Then Fionn would bend his head and stare into the water, and as he stared, he would place his thumb in his mouth under his tooth of knowledge, his wisdom tooth. And so this is this is what we might call scrying, a hydromancy, looking into the water, again, the mirror of Galadriel, etc., as a means of prognosticating the future, Tolkien didn't like Irish mythology, John Goff. Yeah, I doubt that. I doubt that claim. Tolkien also said that Lord of the Rings wasn't a metaphor for World War II. And sure, look, if you even look at the geography of it, the Shire is England, and Mordor is somewhere in the Middle East, in the Arab world. Like, you know what I mean? I don't, Anyway. And the Misty Mountains, well, they don't quite correlate exactly, but, the Alps, Tolkien named Gollum from a cave in the Burren. Yes, indeed, he did. Absolutely, yes. Knowledge, may it be said, is higher than magic and is more to be sought. It is quite possible to see what is happening and yet not know what is forward. For while seeing is believing, it does not follow that either seeing or believing is knowing. Many a person can see a thing and believe a thing and know just as little about it as the person who does neither. But Fionn would see and know, or he would understand a decent ratio of his visions. That he was versed in magic is true, for he was ever known as the knowledgeable man, and later he had two magicians in his household named Dirham and Macraith to do the rough work of knowledge for their busy master. It was not from the Sidhe, however, that assistance came to Fionn. And that is the end of the chapter. We're on to chapter 13. We're only, what are we? Oh, we're not far, but 7 to go. Pole na Gollum. There you go. Thank you for that. Pole na Gollum. He marched through the successive fortifications until he came to the outer Great Wall, the boundary of the city, and when he had passed this, he was on the wide plain of Tara. Other than himself, no person was abroad, for on the night of the Feast of Samhain, none but a madman would quit the shelter of a house, even if it were on fire. For whatever disasters might be within a house would be as nothing to the calamities without it. The noise of the banquet was not now audible to Fionn. It is possible, however, that there was a shamefaced silence in the great hall, and the lights of the city were hidden by the successive great ramparts. The sky was over him, the earth under him, and then these, and than these, and than these there was nothing, or there was but the darkness and the wind. That's what it says. So, I don't know. But darkness was not a thing to terrify him, bred in the nightness of a wood and in the very fosterling of gloom. Nor could the wind afflict his ear or his heart. There was no note in its orchestra that he had not brooded on and become, which becoming is magic. The long drawn moan of it, the thrilling whisper and hush, the shrill, sweet whistle, so thin it can scarcely be heard, and is taken more by the nerves than by the ear. The screech, sudden as a devil's yell and loud as 10 thunders, the cry as of who flies with backward look to the shelter of leaves and darkness, and the sob as of one stricken with an age-long misery, only at times remembered, but remembered then with what a pang. His ear knew by what successions they arrived, and by what stages they grew and diminished. Listening in the dark to the bundle of noises which make a noise, he could disentangle them and assign a place and reason to each gradation of sound that formed the chorus. There was the patter of a there was the scurrying of a hare, a bush rustled yonder, but that brief rustle was a bird. That pressure was a wolf, and this hesitation of fox. That scraping yonder, but it was a rough leaf against bark, and the scratching beyond it was a ferret's claw. Kathy May has to go because our lunch break is over. We'll see you next time. Kathy May, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to catch up on the rest of the story on the recorded version afterwards. Fear cannot be where knowledge is, and Fionn was not fearful. His mind, quietly busy on all sides, picked up one sound and dwelt on it. A man, said Fionn, and he listened in that direction, back towards the city. A man it was, almost as skilled in darkness as Fionn himself. This is no enemy, Fionn thought. His walking is open. Who comes? He called. A friend, said the newcomer. Give a friend's name, said Fionn. Fiacol Macona was the answer. Ah, my pulse and heart, cried Fionn, and he strode a few paces to meet the great robber who had fostered him among the marshes. So you are not afraid, he said joyfully. I am afraid in good truth, Fiacol whispered, and the minute my business with you is finished, I will trot back as quick as my legs will carry me. May the gods protect my going as they protected my coming, said the robber piously. A pious robber. I'll tell you that today you shall be in the kingdom. What is it? You shall share the kingdom of heaven with me. Amen, said Fionn. And now tell me what you have come for. Have you any plan against this lord of the Sidhe? Fiacol whispered. I will attack him, said Fionn. That is not a plan, the other groaned. We do not plan to deliver an attack, but to win a victory. Is this a very terrible person? Fionn asked. He's like only asking these questions now. Half an hour ago, he volunteered in a hall where all the heroes and brave warriors of the assembly were looking at their fingers and looking into their drinks, not volunteering. Now, having volunteered to defend Tara against this terror, he finally asks, is this a very terrible person? Terrible indeed. No one can get near him or away from him. He comes out of the Sidhe playing sweet, low music on a timpan and a pipe, and all who hear this music fall asleep. I will not fall asleep, said Fionn. You will indeed, for everybody does. What happens then? Fionn asked. All are asleep. Ailín Macmíne blows a dart of fire out of his mouth. You all thought I was going to say out of his backside, didn't you? And everything that is touched by that fire is destroyed, and he can blow his fire to an incredible distance and to any direction. You are very brave to come to help me, Fionn murmured. especially when you're not able to help me at all. I can help, Fiacul replied, but I must be paid. Now it's time to talk about Ula. Show me the money. Yes, please, show it to me. Give it to me and let it fall into my lap in abundance. What payment? A third of all you earn and a seat at your council. I grant that, said Fionn. What? No negotiation? No negotiations? No haggling? I'll give you half a denarii. And now tell me your plan. You remember my spear with the 30 rivets of Arabian gold in its socket? The one, Fionn queried, that had its head wrapped in a blanket and was stuck in a bucket of water and was chained to a wall as well. The venomous Burga. That one, Fiacul replied. Sounds like something that was made in Tom King's forge. Tyler says, that's fair. A lot of heroes would ask for half the kingdom and the princess. Yes. Given that Fionn doesn't appear to have had a princess at this stage, I suppose something else had to be asked. It is Ailill Macminia's own spear, he continued, and it was taken out of his she by your father. Well, said Fionn, wondering, nevertheless, where Fiacul got the spear, but too generous to ask. When you hear the great man of the she coming, take the wrappings off the head of the spear and bend your face over it. The heat of the spear, the stench of it, all its pernicious and acrid qualities will prevent you from going to sleep. Are you sure of that? Said Fionn. You couldn't go to sleep close to that stench. Nobody could, Fiacul replied decidedly. Yes, exactly, Nora. Monty Python would be. You have to haggle. Doesn't anybody know how to haggle these days? Give us a third of all you earn. That's yeah, fair enough. I'll give you 10%, and then haggle and me between a third and 10%. I make that 20. 25 is too much, isn't it? 20, 22, 21. 21%. A fifth. You remember my spear. Sorry, yes, I read that bit. He continued. Ailill Macminia will be off his guard when he stops playing and begins to blow his fire. He will think everybody is asleep. Then you can deliver the attack you were speaking of, and all good luck go with it. I will give him back his spear, said Fionn. Here it is, said Fiacul, taking the burga from under his cloak. But be as careful of it, my pulse. Be as frightened of it as you are of the man of Dana, as in one of the two of the Dana. Sounds more like a Fomorian, doesn't he, this Ailill Macminia? Did somebody want a spear, says Tom King. Yes, indeed. And there's a lovely description of it as having 30 rivets of Arabian gold in its socket, if you can arrange that, Tom, for the usual fee plus expenses. Confidential information is in the diary. This is my investigation. This is not a public inquiry. Go on. Somebody tell me who's worse. What? Don't Google it. What band? Better again, what song is that from? Sounds more like he handed him a grenade. The latecomers could be called Nil Leroji. Okie dokie. Give us 110%, says John. Anyway, I do apologise. I will be frightened of nothing, said Fionn, and the only person I will be sorry for is that Ailill Macminia, who is going to get his own spear back. I take it he won't be handing it into his hand. Is Ailill a vicious rabbit by any chance? The holy hand grenade of Antioch. I will go away now, his companion whispered, for it is growing darker where you would have thought there was no more room for darkness. And there is an eerie feeling abroad which I do not like. Again, that sounds like Lord of the Rings, the road to Weathertop. The man from the she may come at any minute, and if I catch one sound of his music, I am done for. The robber went away, and again Fionn was alone. And we are on to chapter 14, which is the last chapter of this So there you go. Gillian Stapleton, yes! Private Investigation, Dire Straits. Brilliant stuff. Do 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 do. What's the opening words? The very first words. Can't remember now. Yeah, gonna have to look it up. I definitely am. It's important. Might be important to 95% of you. What's the very first words? It's a mystery to me. The game commences. For the usual fee plus expenses. Confidential information. It's in the diary. This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry. And if you're wondering why I'm speaking the words, well, if any of you have ever listened to Dire Straits, you'll know that Mark Knopfler doesn't really sing. He speaks. He's a bit like Leonard Cohen, you know. I go checking out the reports, digging up the dirt. You get to meet all sorts in this line of work. Treachery and treason. There's always an excuse for it. When I find the reason, I still can't get used to it. What have you got at the end of the day? And what have you got to take away? A bottle of whiskey, thank you, or a bottle of hazelnut liqueur, and a new set of lies, blinds on a window and a pain behind the eyes. Scarred for life, no compensation, private investigations. I do apologise for that interlude. Let's get on with the story, shall we? Ah, yes. I've a few Dire Straits fans. Movanway seems to know this. Yes, or maybe you just copied and pasted it from Google. But if you're a Dire Straits fan, brilliant. My favorite Dire Straits song is one that I used to sing to my wife when we were courting. When I began to try to convince her that that she should marry me, I used to sing Romeo and Juliet, which I just think is an absolutely fabulous song. Modern retelling. He's underneath the street light and she's singing, "Hey now, my boyfriend's back. Shouldn't come around here singing up to people like that. Anyway, what you gonna do about it?" Brothers in Arms is an absolutely fabulous, beautiful, hauntingly moving piece of musical writing. It's poetry, and there you go. We'll do a whole episode at some point about Dire Straits. He listened to the retreating footsteps until they could be heard no more, and the one sound that came to his tense ears was the beating of his own heart. Even the wind had ceased, and there seemed to be nothing in the world but the darkness and himself. And just as the Salmon of Knowledge could be viewed as an initiatory moment, his meeting of Eileen Macmenia at Tara is also another initiation, really, isn't it? In the presence of the king and the warriors and the olives and the bards and the squires, as they're referred to here. In that gigantic blackness, in that unseen quietude and vacancy, the mind could cease to be personal to itself. It could be overwhelmed and merge in space so that consciousness would be transferred or dissipated. I reckon James Stephens had at this point in the 1920s, 1924, this was published, may have encountered some of the works of C.G. Jung. And one might sleep standing, for the mind fears loneliness more than all else, and will escape to the moon rather than be driven inwards to its own being. That's exactly the sort of thing that Jung would have said, that people will do anything to avoid that journey into themselves, that self-examination, and play all sorts of tricks upon themselves. But Fionn was not lonely, and he was not afraid when the son of Mina came. A long stretch of the silent night had gone by, minute following minute in a slow sequence, wherein, as there was no change, there was no time, wherein there was no past and no future, but a stupefying, endless present, which is almost the annihilation of consciousness. Very interesting. So, to me, that would suggest that he was, deprived of light and senses, that he might have been inside the Mound of the Hostages or something like that. And after a while, it's basically you go into sort of a trance, it's meditative, etc., etc., Yes, indeed, John. We're back off the tangent. Chicks for free. Tolkien and dire straits. Who would have thought? I know. You get all sorts of. What is it? You meet all sorts of. You get to meet all sorts in this line of work. There you go. Poetry in motion. A change came then, for the clouds had also been moving, and the moon at last was sensed behind them, not as a radiance, but as a percolation of light, a gleam that was strained through matter after matter, and was less than the very wraith or remembrance of itself, a thing seen so narrowly, so sparsely, that the eye could doubt if it was or was not seeing, and might conceive that its own memory was recreating that which was still absent. Brilliant stuff. This is fantastic. But Fionn's eye was the eye of a wild creature that spies on darkness and moves there wittingly. He saw then not a thing, but a movement, something that was darker than the darkness it loomed on. Not a being, but a presence, an, as it were, impending pressure. And in a little he heard the deliberate pace of that great being. Fionn bent to his spear and unloosed its coverings. Then from the darkness there came another sound, a low, sweet sound, thrillingly joyous, thrillingly low, so low that the ear could scarcely note it, so sweet the ear wished to catch nothing else, and would strive to hear it rather than all the sounds that may be heard by man. The music of another world, the unearthly, dear melody of the she. So sweet it was that the sense strained to it, and having reached, must follow drowsily in its wake, and would merge in it, and could not return again to its own place until that strange harmony was finished, and the ear restored to freedom. But Fionn had taken the covering from his spear, and with his brow pressed close to it, he kept his mind and all his senses engaged on that sizzling, murderous point. The music ceased, and Aillen hissed a fierce blue flame from his mouth, and it was as though he hissed lightning. Here it would seem that Fionn used magic, for spreading out his fringed mantle, he caught the flame. Rather, he stopped it, for it slid from the mantle and sped down into the earth to the depth of 26 spans, from which that slope is still called the Glen of the Mantle, and the rise on which Aillen stood is known as the Ard of Fire. Ard na Tinne. Wow, fantastic stuff. One can imagine the surprise. Sounds like Stephen King's writings on suspension. Incredible, brilliant stuff. Tom King, I take it you're a Dire Straits fan. Money for nothing and Mythflix for free. One can imagine the surprise of Aillen Macmenia seeing his fire caught and quenched by an invisible hand. And one can imagine that this check he might be frightened. Sorry, that at this check he might be frightened. For who would be more terrified than a magician who sees his magic fail, and who, knowing of power, will guess at powers of which he has no conception, and may well dread? Everything had been done by him as it should be done. His pipe had been played, and his tympan. All who heard that music should be asleep, and yet his fire was caught in full course and was quenched. Aillen, with all the terrific strength of which he was master, blew again, and the great jet of blue flame came roaring and whistling from him, and was caught and disappeared. Panic swirled into the man from Fairy. He turned from that terrible spot and fled, not knowing what might be behind. but dreading it as he had never before dreaded anything. And the unknown pursued him. That terrible defence came offence, and hung to his heel as a wolf pads by the flank of a bull. And Aillen was not in his own world. He was in the world of men, where movement is not as easy, and the very air is a burden. In his own sphere, in his own element, he might have outrun Fionn. But this was Fionn's world, Fionn's element, and the flying god was not gross enough to outstrip him. Yet what a race he gave! For it was but at the entrance of his own she that the pursuer got close enough. Fionn put a finger into the thong of the great spear, and at that cast night fell on Aillen Macmenia. Wow. Magically put. His eyes went black, his mind whirled and ceased. There came nothingness where he had been. And as the burgher whistled into his shoulder blades, he withered away, he tumbled emptily, and was dead. Fionn took his lovely head from its shoulders and went back through the night to Tara. Triumphant Fionn, who had dealt death to a god, and to whom death would be dealt, and who is now dead. He reached the palace at sunrise. On that morning, all were astir early. They wished to see what destruction had been wrought by the great being. But it was the young Fionn they saw, and that redoubtable head swinging by its hair. What is your demand? Said the Ardree. The thing that is right I should ask, said Fionn. The command of the Fianna of Ireland. Make your choice, said Conn to Gull Mór. You will leave Ireland, or you will place your hand in the hand of this champion and be his man. Gull could do a thing that would be hard for another person, and he could do it so beautifully that he was not diminished by any action. Here is my hand, said Gull, and he twinkled at the stern young eyes that gazed on him as he made his submission. As Fiarlum James Stevens Brishta na Tolkien Kishta. Well, that ends the story of the Boyhood of Fionn, as it is beautifully, magically, marvellously told by James Stevens in Irish Fairy Tales, first published by Macmillan and Company in 1924, 97 years ago, and which our good friend Dirk, who is watching, got an original hardback copy yesterday in the old bookshop on the Hill of Tara. Fabulous. So that concludes the reading this evening. I would say to you, don't forget that within the next day or two, I expect to have the Mythical Ireland 2022 calendars from the printer. They are on the printing presses as we speak. And as soon as I have them, I will be getting all the pre-orders out. You can order a Mark was reading along. Brilliant stuff. Absolutely fantastic. You are so lucky, but I am also lucky. You know, we are lucky that publishing has been able to reproduce facsimile reprints of the original works, and we don't have to pay that huge sum of money for them. But so wonderful for you. Yes, the calendars can be ordered on mythicalireland.com. Go into the gallery and shop and go into the calendar section, and you can pre-order your calendar there. Also, Mythical Ireland, New Light on the Ancient Past, revised and expanded edition is at the proofing stage and the indexing stage. When that proof comes back from the publisher, I will proofread it once more, and then I'll be going green light, I hope, for printing. So expect Mythical Ireland revised and expanded edition by the end of November. fingers crossed, all going well. Don't forget that, as always, if you would like to support Mythical Ireland, you would be very welcome to pop over to patreon.com. That's this link here, .com/Mythical Ireland, where you can become a patron of Mythical Ireland. Patrons are treated to lots of exclusive pictures, videos, podcasts, blog posts, and information, as well as early access to a lot of stuff. And you get rewarded for being a patron, is basically what I'm saying. Patrons got a sneak preview. What did they get a sneak preview of? What did I share the other day? Yes, the interior of the calendar, the pictures that are used inside the calendar. And yesterday they got the October update. So all of the things that have been happening in October, a detailed insight as to what's been going on. Thank you, as always. A happy birthday again to Mandy McCurl. Have a great evening, Mandy in Mull. Hope that you are enjoying your birthday. Thank you, Lillian. That's very nice of you to say so. And yes, indeed, Joe, we're excited to get your calendar out to you. Next week, we're doing Ghost Story to coincide with Samhain. And at some point in the not too distant future, we will be returning to the wonderful James Stephens. What a fabulous piece of work. Thanks, Tom King, who's going to forge what's it called? Can't remember the name because it's unusual, isn't it? The name of the spear, Burga, Birgha. Tom's going to make a burger. That's what he's going to do. Burger and fries. Sorry, that was terrible. So good evening, everybody. Thank you. Don't forget, if you haven't watched it, thank you, Gary. Yes, indeed. Follow Gary's advice. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel to get updates and notifications of when there are new videos and live streams. If you missed the Candlelit Tales conversation, that is on the Candlelit Tales YouTube channel. Pop over there if you wish and have a watch. That's an hour and a half, just in case. Grab the popcorn or the crisps or the tea and sandwiches or whatever you have in yourself, And we will hopefully see you next week for the next installment, or maybe a sneaky live stream from the landscape, which I've been promising to do for ages. Good night to all of you. Thanks for watching. Keep safe, keep well. Happy Halloween, happy All Hallows Day, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. Tomorrow, if that's your thing, on Sunday next is the official date, as far as I'm concerned, of Samhain, the halfway date between the equinox, the fall equinox and winter solstice. And of course, we will mark the official date then. James Walsh is making a comment there. Thanks for the young Fionn story with his burger and the Dire Straits interlude, which was most enjoyable, as I am a fan too. Brilliant stuff. Very glad to hear it, James. The vintage stuff is the best, I say. I'm beginning to make myself feel old. Anyway, good night to all of you. All that it remains for me to say at this point is Slán go fóill, Ichawach Chulasov, and the most important thing of all, of course, which is always Tóg go buggy. Take it easy till next time. Bye-bye.